Hello, everyone, and welcome to @J_the Storyteller, the home of stories that move your heart, spark your imagination, and keep you thinking long after they end. Today, we begin a special three-part series titled The Phone That Rang After Midnight. It's a story about love, loss, and the mystery that connects them. A father who lost everything, and a phone call that changes his life forever. As you listen, remember, not every voice from the past is gone, and not every story ends the way we expect. So sit back, turn up your volume, and let the story begin. It was just past midnight in London. The rain fell quietly against the window, blurring the city lights like tears sliding down glass. Brian Walker sat in his small apartment, a cup of cold coffee on the table, and an old photo clutched in his hand. A picture of his wife, Claire, and their little girl, Maya. 3 years had passed since the accident. 3 years since the car crash that took everything from him. Since that night, silence had become his only companion. He worked long hours as a taxi driver, not because he loved it, but because driving meant movement. And movement meant he didn't have to think. At exactly 12:03 a.m., his phone rang. It startled him. The sound was too loud, too sudden, too alive for such a quiet hour. The screen showed unknown number. He almost ignored it, but some faint whisper inside told him to pick up. Hello? His voice cracked slightly. There was silence, a faint crackle on the line. And then a child's voice whispered, Daddy? Brian froze. The coffee mug slipped from his hand, shattering on the floor. The voice continued, soft and trembling. Daddy, it's cold here. His heart began to race. He couldn't breathe. Who is this? He stammered. Who are you? But the call ended. Just static. Then nothing. Brian sat still, his mind replaying every second. That voice. It wasn't just familiar. It was Maya's voice. He whispered to himself, It can't be. She's gone. She's gone. But the sound wouldn't leave his head. The tone, the way she said, Daddy. Even the tiny catch in her breath, it was the same as the night she used to ask for bedtime stories. He checked the call log, unknown number. No location, no trace. He tried calling back. The phone rang once, then the line went dead. Brian's hands trembled as he turned on his laptop. He searched how to trace a private number. Every result said the same thing, impossible. But then he remembered. His friend Mark worked for a telecom company. He sent him a message. Mate, I need a favor. Strange call from an unknown number. Can you check where it came from? Mark didn't reply immediately. Hours passed. The rain stopped. The sun began to rise over the foggy skyline. Finally, at 6:47 a.m., his phone buzzed. A message from Mark. You're not going to believe this. The number's registered to a children's care home in Manchester. Brian blinked. Manchester? That was hundreds of miles away. He called the number again. This time, it didn't even ring. It went straight to voicemail. For the next few days, Brian couldn't think straight. Every sound, every glimpse of a child's laughter on the street, it all reminded him of Maya. By Friday night, he couldn't take it anymore. He packed a small bag, filled his car with fuel, and began driving north. The highway stretched endlessly through the mist, and for the first time in years, he felt something. Not hope, not fear, just a pull, like destiny tugging at his heart. He arrived in Manchester by dawn. The care home was an old brick building at the edge of town, quiet, surrounded by oak trees and an iron gate that creaked when it opened. He introduced himself to the head caretaker, Mrs. Evans, and asked if a child named Maya lived there. She hesitated. There's a new girl, she said. She was found wandering near the motorway 2 weeks ago. She doesn't talk much, but she did mention that name Maya. Brian's chest tightened. Can I see her? Mrs. Evans studied his face, then nodded slowly. They walked down a long corridor filled with paintings and children's laughter. Then she stopped at a door and opened it gently. Inside sat a little girl, pale, quiet, drawing on a piece of paper. When she turned to look at him, Brian's knees nearly gave out. Same eyes, same small dimple, same hair tied in a loose ponytail, just like Maya used to wear. He tried to speak, but words failed him. The girl looked up. Her voice was barely a whisper. "Daddy?" Brian stepped forward, tears streaming down his face. He knelt beside her, shaking, his hand trembling as he reached out. "How do you know me?" he whispered. She smiled faintly and held up her drawing. It was a picture of him, his wife, and her. The same family portrait that used to hang in their living room before the accident. Mrs. Evans looked confused. "Sir, that drawing, no one gave her that photo. She drew it from memory." Brian stared at the girl, heart pounding. This couldn't be real. It couldn't. But then, she said something that made the world stop. She whispered, "Mommy says we'll all be together again soon." Brian froze. "Mommy?" he asked softly. "You mean Claire?" The little girl nodded, and then his phone buzzed again. Unknown number. He answered, his voice trembling. "Hello?" And from the other end, a woman's voice whispered, "Brian, don't let them take her." The line went dead. Brian looked around, but the girl was gone. The chair was empty. He turned to Mrs. Evans. "Where is she?" Mrs. Evans's face went pale. "Who are you talking about?" she whispered. "There's no girl here by that name." To be continued. Next episode, The Girl Who Knew Too Much. At Jay the Storyteller, the home of stories that move your heart. See you in the next episode.